Hi, I'm Leona. I like to watch TV.
I'm Kelsey. I also like to watch TV. We're feminists watching television.
You and I are both pretty active on the internet, so if anybody wants to know who we are, they could just Google us and find out
pretty easily. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I think we were chatting a little bit pre-recording about
we're recording.
Yeah, about the Bechdel test.
Yes.
And about how even though we appreciate that there is a test that exists to kind of separate the pop culture that has nothing to do with women or feminism whatsoever from pop culture that might have something to do with women and feminism just by very virtue of including women in the plot, there are limitations with the test, and yeah, let's go from there.
Well, as you pointed out, and I thought this was very apt because I had overlooked this, and I think a lot of people do, the test, so to speak, was a comic strip. When Alison Bechdel drew the comic strip that became the Bechdel test, I don't think she had the intention or expectation that like 30 years later, people would still be holding this up as the 3 qualities that media needs to have to qualify as feminist, or that people like us would be saying, this is limited, it could be better. I mean, that would be like
sure.
You and I are saying right now, 30 years later, somebody's like, these amazing women said this thing one day off the cuff, and it's super flawed.
Yeah. And, babies of the world 30 years from now, I hope you do come and take us to task. But yeah, just having 2 women, I mean, it's a good starting point, and I like the Bechdel test, but just
review the points for us here, yeah. Kelsey, just in case.
So just because a television show or a movie has 2 women who have names, who talk to each other about something besides a man, and if you are not that familiar with the test, go ahead and take a look at how many movies and TV shows don't pass it, because you will be surprised.
It's shocking.
Yeah. That does not a feminist scene in a television show or movie make.
Mm-hmm.
There can be plenty of scenes where 2 women who have names, who talk about something besides a man, still act awful to each other, and in a way that is not what I would consider feminist whatsoever.
No, not progressive, not current, not reflective of the reality I know. I mean, one of my major issues with media for as long as I can remember is that I've never been in a catty, well, okay, in junior high, I was in a couple of catty female relationships, but like, that's it.
That's junior high, yeah, I mean,
and that's the thing, like, I didn't know until I got to college that people still interacted with each other like that ever in real life, but it certainly isn't, I would say, the norm in real life. And unfortunately, I think it's the norm in a lot of media where women are pitted against each other as adversaries, and they're either like 2/3 of a love triangle or jockeying for the same job and only one woman can have it, or, like, I'm threatened by you coming in here because you're a woman too, and you're going to try to take everything I've fought so hard for. And I feel like most of my experience has been like women who worked so hard to get somewhere are reaching their hand out, trying to help you get somewhere too. It's like being in, a network. It's like your alumni network where you're like, hey, we're both ducks. Let's give each other jobs. You could be like, hey, we're both women. Let's help each other. And that happens in real life.
Yes. And in most situations, I mean, with the exception of maybe a traditional marriage, there's room for more than one woman. More than one woman can work at your job. More than one woman can be your friend. More than one woman can be, can sit at your table at a restaurant. It's not a competition.
Wait, you've been at a table at a restaurant with more than one woman?
More than one woman.
But wait, the other woman was just quiet and had her back to the people who were paying attention, though,
well,
right?
If she had tried to say something, I would have obviously scratched her eyes out. So I think one way to kind of highlight some of these limitations of the Bechdel test in action, which again is not trashing the Bechdel test, like respect for it existing, but just respect, you can go beyond.
Mhm.
is, let's just talk about some stuff that we've been watching lately and how it fares considering these limitations. What have you been watching?
The Americans, Outlander, Orphan Black, Mad Men, Doctor Who, and Hindsight, which is technically on hiatus, as is Doctor Who right now. But these are the 6 programs that I watch with the most focus, the ones that I sit down and look at.
We're 50-50 because I watched 3 of those.
Okay, what are yours?
Well, what out of those 3, I watched The Americans, Outlander, and Mad Men.
Nice. I think we haven't named it yet, but the name that you proposed for our test of our women being allies and ideally friends, promoting each other and helping each other in media, at least 2 of them, is the Knope Friendship Test, named for Leslie Knope.
Female friendships on TV.
Well, seriously, and I think that that's one of the characteristics that is consistent in any of Amy Poehler or Tina Fey's work. Like, even if it's stuff that I don't love, I have to respect everything they do because the women are more often than not allies in the stuff they create.
And
anyway,
at the very least, it's not a given that they're going to be adversaries. Like, Unbreakable Kimmy Schmidt maybe doesn't foreground female relationships quite as much, except maybe the relationship between like Ellie Kemper and Jane Krakowski. But the show does not assume any kind of adversarial relationship between women. It assumes a realistic view that most women are probably going to start out friendly toward each other and go from there. I'm trying to think if there's anything that I watch right now that Parks and Rec is off the air, RIP, that I feel does a good job of kind of going beyond the Bechdel test to the realm of the Knope Friendship Test.
Oh, I like the way you put that.
I think, as much as I love The Americans, I don't know that I would consider that to fit the bill. I mean, I guess maybe Elizabeth and Paige, mother-daughter, like they're supportive of one another now that some of those secrets are out in the open, but it's still, I don't know if it takes, it's certainly not a Leslie Knope level of camaraderie.
The relationship is still very tenuous there, though, in terms of whether or not Paige is an adversary.
Right, and it's such a great show. No shade. I love the show.
The other women in the program are typically they're happening in their own worlds. It's not like they're intersecting with each other. Right. They all have names. They're all great characters.
And they're not just there to service, men's plot lines, but it's not, I wouldn't take it to the level of showing women kind of working together and supporting each other. I think, of course, I will always have, maybe even a blind spot when it comes to Mad Men, certainly a soft spot. It's my favorite show. But also, it is taking place during the now early 1970s. And so, the fact that the 2 female leads who spend screen time together, Peggy and Joan, have a very complicated relationship. I wouldn't call it necessarily adversarial at all times, but they're not best friends either.
I'd call it authentic.
Yeah, I love their scenes together, but I think it's more apt that they would feel that one woman might feel threatened by another woman in the workplace that they are in than if we were in 2015.
Oh, for sure. I mean, especially when one of them, that elevator scene in the most recent episode was perfect in terms of being their entire relationship in a nutshell.
Yeah.
Where Joan has both the benefits and the drawbacks of looking like Joan at a time like that in business. And Peggy has both the benefits and the drawbacks of looking like Peggy at a time like that in business. And no matter how unified they are in being women in business in a man's world, they're always going to be at different points of power for those reasons and others. Like, Peggy pointing out to Joan, you're rich, you can do whatever you want. Maybe that was Freudian, but you can do whatever you want.
Yes.
It's true. Joan does have the power of money, and Peggy reminds her of that. But, and also I think since both of them kind of lucked into, not really good luck, but neither of them got into the position she's in through the kind of traditional channels that you or I might try to these days. Joan doesn't like it, but she did sleep her way into her position. And Peggy doesn't seem to remember or acknowledge that Dawn kind of put her there. She didn't she didn't try too hard to get copywriter or head copywriter initially. She just kept getting put there because she was available and, you know, she wanted it. It wasn't like she was totally passive about the whole thing, but neither of them is Pete Campbell, who's like climbing every minute. So I feel like maybe there's an opportunity here to open it up to people in the comments to share other programs that do or do not meet the criteria for the Bechdel test, and ideally the additional Knope Friendship Test. Are these women allies and or friends? And that would be interesting to sort of start putting together a list of what's on now. Or, you know, I think it's legit to include what has been on, since there's nothing that isn't off the air anymore. Basically, you can get everything online or on old,
Which I will throw in A Different World as a show that I think absolutely passes a Knope Friendship Test that I've been watching on Netflix recently.
See, and I think Charlie's Angels would also qualify, so I'm going to throw it out there.
Also, Gilmore Girls.
Oh, Gilmore Girls is a very good example. Yeah.
And obviously Buffy.
Well, Buffy, obviously. I feel like there will be a point in every episode of this web series where we have to say, obviously Buffy.
Well, obviously Buffy.